الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر
الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. All of you people have made a big sacrifice compared to the standards of the people at the moment. Most of the people would love to be at home right now watching the Olympic Games. They've been waiting for the Olympics from a long time. It's the event since the last Olympics, 4 years in waiting for these Olympics. So, it's not surprising that many Muslims, when you ask them to come at this time for an Islamic tour, it's difficult for them to come. Because this is a big event, the Olympics. It's a world event. As they claim, billions of people around the world are watching this event. People from so many nations around the world have gathered together for the Olympic Games. But there is another event. There is another event that is bigger than the Olympic Games. And that event, it's coming in less than a month. It is that event that we as Muslims are more excited about it than the people are for the Olympic Games to come. And that event is the month of Ramadan. It is an event which is bigger than the Olympics if you think about it. In the Olympics, there are people from so many countries coming and participating. But still, there are only few people from so many countries participating. The month of Ramadan, that is an event bigger than the Olympics. Because the people are coming for it. Or people are participating in this great event of the month of Ramadan from so many countries around the world. Not just watching it on TV, but they're actually living it, practicing it, feeling it, the brotherhood, the piety, increasing in taqwa. That is the event of the month of Ramadan. And this event, as I said, it truly is one of the most remarkable events on planet Earth in the world. But we don't appreciate it sometimes and not realize how great an event this month of Ramadan is. Let's today look at one aspect of this month of Ramadan. The month of Ramadan, it is a month for the Quran. It is a month for the Quran. There is so much in this month of Ramadan that makes it an incredible month, a huge event. In the Olympics you might have the basketball, the tennis, the gymnastics, the swimming pool events, all these other events. In Ramadan, you've also got the fasting, you've got the Quran, you've got the charity, you've got doing good to the people, you've got all these events. Today, I want us to focus on one particular event, and that is Ramadan, a month for the Quran, the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Just to appreciate that this Ramadan, it truly is a month for the Quran, let's look at a verse from Surah Al-Baqarah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in this verse that the Quran, the book of Allah, the book of guidance, this miraculous book, this incredible book, a book that contains all this guidance for mankind, for Muslims and for non-Muslims, a book that has stood the test of time for 1,400 years and will still remain the most remarkable book on earth until the Day of Judgment. This book, Allah chose to reveal it in the month of Ramadan. Allah says in the Quran, in Surah Al-Baqarah, Allah says, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم, Allah says, شهر رمضان الذي أنزل فيه القرآن هدى للناس وبينات من الهدى والفرقان فمن شهده منكم فليصمه. Allah says, شهر رمضان الذي أنزل فيه القرآن. The month of Ramadan, the one wherein the Quran was revealed. The month wherein the Quran was revealed as a guidance. هُدًى لِلنَّاسِ, as a guidance for mankind. وَبَيِّنَاتٍ مِنَ الْهُدَى. And this guidance, Allah did not just give the guidance to you, but Allah also gave the bayinat. Because we as human beings, we have a brain, We have an intellect. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent us the Quran, and He sent therein guidance, and for that guidance He sent us bayinat. Bayinat are things that clarify things for you. They convince you intellectually so that you can go about it with your whole heart and your soul. These are bayinati min al-huda. So Allah is saying that this Quran, which was revealed in the month of Ramadan, it is a guidance for mankind, and it is clear signs and proofs of guidance. Wal Furqan, and it is the criterion. It is the criterion that separates the truth from the falsehood. If you want to know what is right and what is wrong, before you start your search on Google, first pick up the Quran and look in the Quran for your search. Only then go forth in the Google. Because the Quran, one of its names is Al-Furqan. It is the criterion that shows you what is good from that which is harmful or wrong. So then Allah says that this month of Ramadan wherein the Quran was revealed, Allah says the Quran, this month where it was revealed as a guidance and clear signs and a Furqan, Allah says whoever of you witnesses this month, is present therein, let him fast. Let him fast. So Allah chose this month of Ramadan to be the month where the Quran is revealed. And Allah chose this month where the Quran was revealed to be the month where we do our compulsory fast for the one whole month. That fast which is a pillar of Islam, the fasting of Ramadan. SubhanAllah, let's just stop for a minute and appreciate this. Allah revealed the Quran as a guidance for all mankind, to help them in affairs of their life that are the most important. And after giving this guidance, then Allah made fasting to be done in that month. Can you think of a reason why fasting in that month, it's a very appropriate thing? Because in order for you to recite the Quran, in order for you to act on the guidance of the Quran, you need that desire to follow the Quran. You need that taqwa. You need the righteousness, the piety, the taqwa. And that taqwa, it is developed by the fasting. And that fasting is done in this month. So we can develop the taqwa and follow the guidance that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent in this month of Ramadan. So subhanAllah, this month, Allah made fasting in this month not just for no reason. But we develop, as Allah says in the Quran, Ya ayyuhal ladhina amanu, O you who believe, kutiba alaykum as-siyam. Fasting was prescribed on you, kama kutiba ala alladhina min qablikum, as it was prescribed on those before you, la'allakum tattaqun, so that you may learn righteousness and piety. And this righteousness and piety you develop in this month such that you could implement this taqwa by following the guidance of the Quran. And therefore, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, subhanallah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He sent down a great being in this month of Ramadan, every year of the life of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now if you watch the TV, I personally didn't have time to do that, but from what I saw in the newspapers, if you watch the TV reports about the Olympic Games, you will see the President of the United States, all the way from United States in China. You will see the Prime Minister of Australia, all the way from Australia to China for this special event. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, for a greater event, the month of Ramadan, He sent during the lifetime of the Prophet ﷺ, Allah sent someone bigger than the President of the United States, someone bigger than the Prime Minister of Australia, and that is the angel. That is the angel Gabriel, the chief of the angels. As we learn in a hadith, every year in the month of Ramadan, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala used to send angel Jibreel to Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And he used to recite the Quran and revise the Quran with the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam during the month of Ramadan, during the nights. And when Jibreel would come and the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam would recite the Quran, it would have its effect on him and the company of the angel Gabriel or Jibreel. To the extent that the Sahaba said that the Prophet was the best of the people. كان رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم أجود الناس. The messenger of Allah صلى الله عليه وسلم was the best of the people. وَكَانَ أَجْوَدُ مَا يَكُونُ فِي رَمَضَانِ حِينَ يَلْقَاهُ جِبْرِيلُ يُدَارِسُهُ الْقُرْآنِ. And the best that the Prophet ﷺ was, it was in Ramadan. When Jibreel alayhi salam used to come to the Prophet ﷺ every night, reciting and studying the Quran with the Prophet ﷺ. And at that time when the Quran came, the Sahaba said, every night when Jibreel would come, the Sahaba said, the Prophet ﷺ, he was better, he was nicer than a rih al-mursala. You know, the nice, beautiful, sweet, calm breeze that comes, that makes you feel so nice and happy. And it makes your day. The Prophet ﷺ, in Ramadan, when he would recite the Quran with Jibreel and study it, he was better than even that best and most beautiful of the breeze during Ramadan. So all this sets the scene for us that we as Muslims, we should be reciting the Quran in Ramadan along with the fasting. That Ramadan is a month for Quran. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent none less than the chief of the angels. Angel Gabriel or Jibreel, Allah sent him to Prophet ﷺ every night of Ramadan for the sole purpose of revising the Quran. For the sole purpose of revising the Quran. It shows to us that in our lives in Australia today, there might be Olympic Games going on, and that might be important and you're watching it on TV every night. I don't know if it happens during the day or night, but you might be watching it on TV. But do keep the time in Ramadan when it comes for the Quran. Because the Ramadan is the month for the Quran. Let's look at the benefit and importance of the Quran. Why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent the angel to come down to earth every night in Ramadan for the sole purpose of reciting the Quran. Let's look at the importance of the Quran and in the month of Ramadan. So when Ramadan comes upon us in less than a month, we could spend the nights in Ramadan or the days to recite the Quran. Let's not waste this opportunity. It is bigger than the Olympics. It is an event where people from more than 100, 200 countries around the world, they participate in this Ramadan. Let's look at the excellence and the benefit of the Quran. And then we realize why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us so much reward for reciting the Quran. But we all know of so much reward for reading the Quran. But let's look at the benefits of the Quran so we can appreciate all this reward of reciting the Quran, especially in the month of Ramadan. Let's just spend the next 10 minutes, 15 minutes looking at the Quran. And of course we don't have time, so we'll just spend about 10, 15 minutes looking at the Quran as just a summary. One of the nicest and most beautiful things about the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives you stories. But not just stories, but real story. You know, when you're watching a movie, right in the beginning they say, the story in this movie is based upon real life incident that happened. And you say, wow, that must be big, awesome. I'm going to be watching this movie. I want to find out what happened. In the Quran, the things that Allah reveal, they are real life stories. Just like those movies and better. One of the real life stories, for example, that Allah reveals, He does that so we can learn something from it, for our own good, before it is too late, before we come to the Day of Judgment. One of the stories is in Surah Al-Qasas, where Allah reveals a story about a man who was big in one day. Once upon a time, he was bigger. He was bigger than the big people of today, but you can draw parallels to them. You all know of the story of Britney Spears. You all know of the stories of Elvis Presley. You all know of the story of other movie stars. You all know their stories. In the Quran, Allah relates the story of a star of that day who was bigger than Elvis Presley and Britney Spears and the best of the movie stars in Hollywood or in Bollywood. That story is of a man called Qarun. He lived in the time of Musa alayhi salam. He was rich, he was a star, he was the man of the time. He was so rich that just to carry the keys of the treasures that he had, he would have an entourage parading behind him. That is what a star he was, that man. But he thought, as Allah says in the Quran, قَالَ إِنَّمَا أُوتِيتُهُ عَلَىٰ عِلْمٍ مِّنْ عِنْدِي. He said that all this good that I have, I was only given all of that because of my own geniusness, because of my own good. And the other people of the dunya, when they looked at, wow, what a glamorous man, what a big star, they said, Ya layta lana mithla ma utiya Qarun, innahu ladhu hadhin azim. Those people said, they said, wow, we wish we had the like of what Qarun has got. Surely he's got a great fortune. That's what they wanted to be. But the people that Allah wants us to be like, وَقَالَ الَّذِينَ أُوتُوا الْعِلْمِ, those who were given the knowledge of Islam, they were not deluded. They were not deluded. They were not deluded. Because if you see the stars of the world, you can see what I mean. The people who were given the knowledge of the Quran, of Islam, the people who were given the knowledge of Allah, وَقَالَ الَّذِينَ أُوتُوا الْعِلْمِ وَيْلَكُمْ ثَوَابُ اللَّهِ خَيْرٌ لِمَنْ آمَنَ وَعَمِلَ صَالِحًا. Those who were given the knowledge, Allah says, they said to the other people, they said, woe to you. The reward of Allah in this life and in the Jannah, that is better for the ones who believe in Allah and do good deeds. So Allah is showing to you two types of people. One like Qarun, the big star of that time, the big Hollywood man of that time, or the big pop singer of that time, the big guy of that time. And the other one are the people of Allah, the ones who learned the Quran. What does Allah say? What does Allah show in Surah Qasas? He says that this Qarun, when he was marching in front of the people, all proud of himself, but because of the sins that he was doing, because of denying Allah, because of all of this, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made the earth from under him swallow him up with all his grandness. And then the people, they realized, that this is not what we want to be. We too in our time, when we read the Quran in Ramadan, when we recite the Quran in Ramadan and understand its meaning and reflect upon it, we see that the stars of today, the pop singers of today, the Hollywood stars of today, the ones that are mentioned and the other ones, you see that there were stars just 2-3 years ago. They were big 2-3 years ago. Now they're not big anymore. They're not big anymore. You also see the stars, the ones that they say were the king of the rock or the pop, I forget, whatever. The ones that they say were all these big people, they say about them that these people ended up, some of them on drugs, and they killed themselves. At a young age, they were not even very old. Subhanallah, what you read in the Quran, you see it in your life around you. But if you don't read it, then you will be pursuing something in your life where you waste your whole life before it is too late. You might be wasting your life and not realize. But in Ramadan, if you picked up the Quran and you recited it, you see these stories, the real life incidents. But Allah is teaching you lessons and He's making you open up your eyes from all these things that happened in the past. Things that are so relevant to our lives today. Let's remember that you might think the Quran is for my old man. You know, he reads it. He goes to the masjid and he reads it. It's not for me. You know, for me, I got to go out with my mates, watch the movies. All right, I'll do the fast. As soon as iftar happens, off I go with my mates. That's it. Quran, my dad will read it. It's not like that. As Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu said, and as you know, people, they think that the Quran, I'll just recite the Arabic. And we should recite the Arabic because it is very important. But at the same time, we should recite the meaning of the Quran as well. As Sheikh ibn Uthaymeen rahimahullah said, that the tilawat of the Quran, it is the tilawat of the word of the Quran, the meaning of the Quran, and finally acting upon what you read in the Quran. And Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu said that the Quran, the understanding of the Quran is at 4 levels. It is at 4 levels. Meaning every one of us should be reciting the Quran and understand its meaning from its translation and tafsir and so on. Because Ibn Abbas said that the Quran, one level of understanding is that which the Arabs understand because they understand the Arabic. But another level of understanding of the Quran is what every Muslim should know about what Allah wants us to do about halal and haram. And another 3rd level of the Quran and its understanding is the one that only the scholars know. And the 4th level is the one which only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows. But you see from all of this that all of us, we fit into one of these categories. Every one of us should be reciting the Quran and trying to understand its meaning. Because as the Prophet ﷺ said, he said that the Al-Quran, it is hujjatun laka aw alayka. He said that the Quran, it is a proof for you or it is against you. How? How? Because you all know that over there in the bookshelf, there is the Quran. And there's a translation of the Quran. Whatever language you understand, whether it is English, whether it is Urdu, whether it is Persian, Sindhi, Punjabi, whatever language it is that you speak, you find there the translation of the Quran. So Allah, as the Prophet is saying, Allah has sent the Quran and its message to us. Now if we don't read it, then the Quran will be an evidence against us on the Day of Judgment that here I was the Quran for you, in your own language to understand, but you did not even recite it. Whose fault was it? Or the Quran, as the Prophet says, it can be an argument, an evidence. It could be your mate. It could be your friend on the Day of Judgment. How? That is when you read the Quran, understand its meaning, and you act upon it. So every one of you, subhanallah, every one of us, the Quran, it's either going to be your friend on the Day of Judgment arguing for you, or it's going to be arguing against you. If you read the meaning of the Quran and act accordingly, then it will be your friend on the Day of Judgment. Otherwise, that Quran will be arguing against you on the Day of Judgment. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, from the story of Qarun, Allah mentions at the end of the story, see, we might think, do you want me to be a good Muslim where I forget about all the world and everything around it? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that you should be a balanced person. So Allah shows to us in the Quran, Allah says, وَلَا تَنْسَ نَصِيبَكَ مِنَ الدُّنْيَا. Allah's telling us that live this world. Do have a job. Have a good job. Work hard in your job. Earn your money. Earn your living. When you're at the university, when you're at the school, study hard. Don't ignore the dunya. Don't ignore the world. وَلَا تَنْسَ نَصِيبَكَ مِنَ الدُّنْيا. Don't forget your share of this life, of this world. But at the same time, وَأَحْسِنْ كَمَا أَحْسَنَ اللَّهُ إِلَيْكَ. And do good as Allah did good to you. And do good as Allah did good to you. So in this verse, Allah is showing to you levels. You can either be the gold medalist of the Olympics, or you could be someone who just gets a silver medal, or a bronze medal, or no medal at all. In the Olympics, as you all know, what would you like to get? Surely you'd like the gold medal. Have you seen the people when they get the gold medal? They have tears in their eyes, tears of joy. And when they stand on that podium or whatever that is, taking their gold medal, can you see how happy they are? It is after all the hard work, it's paid off. That is how it is with a Muslim. After all the hard work of the month of Ramadan, it pays off for the Muslim in this life and on the Day of Judgment. But it is for us to train for it. It is for us to train for it. Have you seen on the news that weightlifter from Hungary? Have you seen that weightlifter from Hungary who, when he was lifting the weights, his elbow actually snapped. His elbow snapped. Did you see that? SubhanAllah, that was horrific. His elbow snapped. He worked all his life training hard for that gold medal. But when he actually made it to the Olympics, his elbow snapped. And you all know that he can never ever participate in the Olympics again. All that effort he put leading up to the Olympics, there's no gold medal for him. But in Islam, subhanAllah, in Islam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has, even if you didn't get the gold medal, but Allah still has something for you where it is as good as anything else. For everybody, for every participant. As the Prophet informs us, on the Day of Judgment, the person who gets the least reward, he will get the reward equal to the best of the kings of the world and 10 times more than that. Everything that you want in this life, you could get it on the Day of Judgment and even more than that. Allah shows to us in the Quran, you could either go for the gold medal, or you could still just go for any medal, or just to be in the Olympics. Just to be in the Olympics. Wouldn't you want, how many of you here, if you had a chance to get the gold medal in the Olympics, how many of you would not want to have that? Surely every one of you would like to have that. What sport do you play? Cricket? Basketball? Tennis? soccer, whatever sport you play, wouldn't you love to have the gold medal in it one day? Likewise, wouldn't you like to have that gold medal as well on the Day of Judgment? That is by putting the work in the month of Ramadan, reading the Quran, understanding the Quran, and also in the rest of your life as well. Allah refers to the gold medalists in the Quran as the Sabiqun al-Awwalun, or as the Sabiqun, the foremost, the ones who are ahead of the rest. They are the gold medalists. But even everybody else amongst Muslims, Allah refers to them as Ashabul Yameen, as the people of the right hand. SubhanAllah, that's the good thing about Islam, that even if you didn't get the gold medal, you could still be the people of the right hand and get that good reward in Jannah. But you need to put that work, especially in the month of Ramadan, reciting the Quran and working for it. There is a lot more in the Quran. I won't go into it because we don't have much time, but I want to move on. But just one other important thing about the Quran before I move on. When you go to school, or when you watch movies, or when you watch TV, I would love to tell you, don't waste your time with movies and music, but then I know many Muslims do all those things. When you do all those things, you see that the movie stars, the music stars, and the rich people of the world, all the time, they keep instilling in you a love for this world that finishes tomorrow. And sometimes they even put ideas in your mind that are not right. Sometimes you tell yourself this is not right, but day after day after day, you tend to just accept it. You tend to accept it. So when you're at school, people might tell you about evolution, that is the right thing. They might make fun of religion, that it is an ancient book. Or people might make fun of the people who say that they believe in a religion. But when you recite the Quran, you find, when you recite the Quran, it sort of balances out all that negative that you hear everywhere at school and in the big screen, in the TV and in the movies and everywhere. That's why the Quran, it is the life of the Muslim. The Quran, it is the blood through the body of the Muslim. The Quran, it is the air that without which we cannot live, even for a short while. Without the Quran, we cannot survive in Jannah at all. We cannot get to Jannah without the Quran. So everyone, let's remember to recite the Quran. There are so many verses in the Quran, that talk about these thoughts that people put in your mind, to do with evolution, to do with Allah creating this world, to do with why we are here, where we are heading, what is the purpose of this life. And not just that, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala even encourages us to seek that. Imagine if day in and day out, all you see is what you see on the movies and everywhere, then would you be wanting to work hard for Allah and for the hereafter? But if you spend that time reciting the Quran, especially in the month of Ramadan, then you know what you're working for Jannah, and then you would work for it. And I want to move on from this to the last part of my talk. I wanted to mention many other verses of the Quran, but they will take a long time. So I want to move to the last part of the talk, that when we realize how important the Quran is, we develop an understanding of why the Prophet gave so much reward. Let me ask you, can you tell me some reward about reading the Quran? Can someone tell me here about some reward about reciting the Quran? Somebody, just put your hand up and tell me one reward that the Prophet said about reciting the Quran. Anybody? One reward about reciting the Quran. What is one reward about reciting the Quran? All of you guys there. Yes?
And Hasana for reading a word.
Good, excellent. As the brother pointed out, even if you recite one letter of the Quran, you get 10 times the reward of it. The Prophet ﷺ is telling you get all this reward. But then you might say, yeah, sure, I've heard all of that. But then I'm busy. I've got this to do, that to do. But all these things, as we saw, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent the best of the angels, Jibreel, to Prophet Muhammad ﷺ in Ramadan, so the Prophet could read the Quran and revise the Quran in Ramadan. It shows the importance of it, and it is because of that that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala promised so much reward for the Muslim who recites the Quran. So I want to finish off by reminding everybody of the reward of reciting the Quran in the month of Ramadan. And as we start, let's remember one thing the Prophet ﷺ said. The Prophet ﷺ said, إِنَّ اللَّهَ يَرْفَعُ بِهَذَا الْكِتَابِ أَقْوَامًا وَيَضَعُ بِهِ آخَرِينَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, or the Prophet ﷺ said, that with this book, the Quran, Allah raises some people and makes them big and mighty. And with this same to do with the Quran, Allah puts other people down, totally humiliated. It is up to us. Today you might look at the Muslims around the world and you might wonder that why in some countries they are hunted down by the people and they are killed. Did you know that in some countries around the world, a person would say, hey man, look, I'm telling you, I'm not even a Muslim, dude. I'm not a Muslim. Leave me alone. Leave me alone. But they say, no, your name is a Muslim. Say, no, my name is Mo, man. Mo. It's not Muhammad. It's Mo. But still, they'll say, I know you were born to a Muslim parent. And they would chase him down and hunt him down until they destroy that person and kill him. Subhanallah. As the Prophet said, if you stuck by the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah will give you honor. And Allah will give you honor and nobility to the extent that the people respect you. But if you left the Quran, Allah will leave you to yourself, where others will take you as a joke. It's your decision. It's your decision. The Quran is either an evidence for you or against you. You don't have a choice. Let's spend the time for the Quran. And to do that, the Prophet ﷺ helped us. He said, Man qara'a harfan min kitabillah, whoever recited one letter of the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, for him is one good deed. And the Prophet said, Al-hasanatu bi'ashri amthaliha. One good deed is rewarded by 10 times. Subhanallah, you read the Quran for your own good, but Allah is encouraging you by giving you so much reward. He's saying if you recited even one letter of the Quran, you get reward 10 times for it. And the Prophet said, the word alif lam mim, which has 3 letters, he said, I don't mean that is one letter, because that's actually one word consisting of 3 letters. He said, alif is a letter, lam is a letter, and mim is a letter. So every day, guys and girls, every day, if you only spent even 15 minutes reciting the Quran, there are so many letters you recite and you get 10 times the reward. Wallahi, by Allah, if you did not spend that time reciting the Quran, whether you like it or not, you're either going to be raised or you're going to be humiliated and debased. The reward is great. 10 times for one letter. Recite the Quran in Arabic because that's what the reward is for. But read the meaning of it and understand from the tafsir of the scholars as well. And also, as the Prophet said, some of us, we might think, I'm not so good at reciting the Quran. Yeah, I heard that reciter read the Quran or the Imam. Wow, he was really nice. So beautiful his recitation. I'm not that good. I'm not going to bother reading the Quran. But as the Prophet informs us, he says that as for the person who recites the Quran and is good at reciting the Quran, he is in the company of the noble angels. The noble, righteous angels, the ambassadors of Allah. He is in the big company. But then the Prophet says, and as for the person who struggles to read the Quran, and he's trying, he's not good at it, but he's trying, and he's struggling and trying, for him, the Prophet said, are 2 rewards. So even if you're not good at reciting the Quran, still do it. You'll still get the reward. As I said, you don't have that choice. The Quran is either your friend on the Day of Judgment or it's going to be speaking against you on the Day of Judgment. Why not take that opportunity and recite even if you're not good? You still get 2 rewards. One for reading the Quran and the other for putting in the effort to try to read the Quran. Why not do that? Why not do that? Again, as the Prophet says, once you recite the Quran, what happens on the Day of Judgment to the person who recites the Quran? What is the status of the person on the Day of Judgment for the one who recites the Quran? Again, if you look at the Olympic Games, initially you have the heats and the trials. And there are so many people from so many countries. They're all trying hard in the legs of the heats. There might be 50 people in one competition. in one trial or heat after another, they get knocked out. They get knocked out. And one person reaches the some people reach the quarterfinals. Then some other people, they're even better and they reach the semifinals. Then some others go all the way and get the gold medal. In the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, the more you recite the Quran in this life, the more you recite the Quran in this life, the higher will be your status. The higher will be your status in paradise. As the Prophet says, he says that يُقَالُ لِصَاحِبِ الْقُرْآنِ, to the person of the Quran, it will be said on the Day of Judgment, اقرأ وارتقي ورتل كما كنت ترتل في الدنيا. It will be said to the person on the Day of Judgment, it will be said, read the Quran. On the Day of Judgment, it's said to the person, read the Quran and keep rising in your status as you recite more and more the Quran. Just as you used to recite in this life here. Why? Because فَإِنَّ مَنْزِلَتَكَ عِنْدَ آخِرِ آيَةٍ كُنْتَ تَقْرَؤُهَا or آخِرِ آيَةٍ تَقْرَؤُهَا. Because your status in paradise will be as high as the number of verses you recited in this life. SubhanAllah, did you know? You see some Muslim guys and girls, they're in their bus and they have a little copy of the Quran and they're reciting the Quran because they want the gold medal in Jannah. They want the gold medal in Jannah. They're not happy with quarterfinals. They're not happy with semifinals. They want the gold. When they're in the bus, they're reciting the Quran. When they're around somewhere else in the library, when they're taking a break, they're reciting the Quran. They're making the most of every minute that they have, especially in this 1 month of Ramadan. Why is reading Quran in Ramadan so even more important? Because you as a human being, if I said to you every day, read 5 juz of the Quran, in Urdu para, I said every day, read 5 para of the Quran. You will be saying, what will you say? You got to be kidding. You wouldn't want to be doing 5 para every day of the Quran. But if you said in the month of Ramadan, put in that extra effort and read at least 1 para or 1 juz of the Quran, you'll feel that, okay, just for 1 month, 30 days, that's a fair deal. I think I can do it. I think I can do it. So that's why Allah is encouraging us in this month more than any other time. The more you read of the Quran, the higher will be your level on the Day of Judgment. The higher your level on the Day of Judgment. And that is why the Prophet ﷺ, because your status depends on how much Quran you read. Why? Because the Quran is the lifeblood of the Muslim. Because of the guidance it has, the Prophet ﷺ, he encouraged us to learn the Quran. And the Prophet ﷺ said, he said, خَيْرُكُمْ مَنْ تَعَلَّمَ الْقُرْآنَ وَعَلَّمَهُ. The Prophet ﷺ said, the best of you, who is the best of you? Some of us might think the best of us is the one who built a big house in a nice posh suburb with so many rooms. Yeah, I built a house, it's got this many rooms. My house, it's actually got even more rooms. Another one comes and says, in my house I've even got a rumpus room. It's got a pool, billiards table in there as well. You never play billiards, but it's got it there as a status symbol. Oh yeah, by the way, the TV, it actually comes down from the roof. Wow, that's my house. So the best of you, to us, is the one who's got the best house or the best car. But Allah is saying that eventually what matters the most, the best of you, خَيْرُكُمْ مَنْ تَعَلَّمَ الْقُرْآنَ وَعَلَّمَهُ. The best of you is the one who learns the Quran and he teaches it to the other people. That is the best of the people. You might have heard from the people, son, work hard in cricket, basketball. I want you one day to be in the Australian cricket team. That's good. If you could make it, good. Maybe you could actually, do sujood when you hit 6 sixes in an over. MashaAllah, that'd be good. But then again, that is good. But even better, خَيْرُكُمْ مَنْ تَعَلَّمَ الْقُرْآنَ وَعَلَّمَهُ. The best of you is the one who learned the Quran and taught it. Have your parents told you that? Well, inshallah, tonight your parents will tell you that the best of you are the one who learns the Quran and teaches it to the others. This is what the dad, this is what the mum should be telling the Muslim kids, and inshallah they will be telling the Muslim kids. And the Prophet ﷺ, to encourage us to do that, he told us about the gatherings where we study the Quran, when you gather together to learn about Islam and Quran, like this gathering today. About that the Prophet ﷺ said, Imagine if somebody said to you, oh yeah, there's a birthday party this weekend. There's a birthday party this weekend. You say, do I want to go? Then you say, yeah, in that party there's going to be, this dude, he's going to be there, He's really cool, man. I'm going to be there as well. And then, this girl's going to be there as well. Wow, she's going to be there. She's hot. I'm going to be there too. Right? This is how you think about which gathering you want to go to. The Prophet ﷺ is telling you about the most important gathering. He's saying in an authentic hadith, وَمَا اجْتَمَعَ قَوْمٌ فِي بَيْتٍ مِّن بُيُوتِ اللَّهِ يَتْلُونَ كِتَابَ اللَّهِ وَيَتَدَارَسُونَهُ بَيْنَهُم. The Prophet ﷺ says, no people ever gather together in a house of Allah amongst his houses, meaning a mosque, reciting the Quran, studying it with each other. So this is the gathering about which the Prophet ﷺ is talking about. The gathering with the people who gather together in a masjid to recite the Quran and study the Quran. What about this gathering? What about this gathering? Who's coming in that gathering? Who else is going to be there in that gathering? The angels are going to be there in that gathering. As the Prophet ﷺ continues in the hadith, he says, when people gather together in the masjid to recite the Quran and to study the Quran, إِلَّا نَزَلَتْ عَلَيْهِمُ السَّكِينَةِ, except that tranquility descends upon them. وَغَشِيَتْهُمُ الرَّحْمَةِ, and the mercy encompasses them. وَحَفَّتْهُمُ الْمَلَائِكَةِ, and the angels surround them. وَذَكَرَهُمُ اللَّهُ فِي مَنْ عِنْدَهُ, and Allah mentions them in the best of the gathering of the angels that are there up high. This is the best of the gathering. Allah is saying, whenever you gather together in the masjid to recite the Quran, you are in the company of the angels. And you have the mercy of Allah. You can't say that when you go to a birthday party. Did you know recently, a party, somebody gate crashed a party. I read in the news just last week. Somebody gate crashed a party. They had something against somebody. And they actually, with a hammer or something blunt, the guy who was the man of the house, the boy of the house, they actually beat him up on his head with that blunt instrument and they killed him. And they killed him. Sometimes this is the gathering. But in the gathering, when you come to learn about the Quran, you have the mercy of Allah and peace and tranquility that descends upon you. It is this gathering that you'd want to be with. It is this gathering we all should want to be with. And the last hadith with which I want to finish off, as the Prophet ﷺ said, he said, اقرأوا القرآن, recite the Quran, read the Quran. اقرأوا القرآن فإنه يأتي يوم القيامة شفيعا لأصحابه. He said, read the Quran, recite the Quran, because it comes on the day of judgment as an intercessor for the people, for its people, for the people who recite the Quran. Don't you want the Quran to come to you on a day that for sure, wallah, for sure, every one of you is going to be on that day. If I asked you now, those of you who are still at school, if I asked you when you finish school, what do you want to do? Can I ask some of you guys here who's still at school, when you finish school, what do you want to be? Which university course do you want to get into? Can I ask some of the school kids, when you finish school, what university course do you want to get into? Any of you, what university course do you want to get into? Sorry, business? Okay, another one? One of you guys? Medicine? Okay, you want to get into international business, into medicine, all these courses. Can you guarantee that before you finish your school and get to the university, you'll still be alive? No, you might be dead. You might be dead. So for sure you're going to die. And when you die, as Allah says, وَبُرِّزَتِ الْجَحِيمُ لِمَنْ يَرَى. Allah says on the day of judgment, every one of you is going to die. And on the day of judgment, the hellfire will be brought forward for everybody to see. And as the Prophet says, every human being will walk on a bridge. Under the bridge will be the hellfire. And the bridge will be as thin as the hair on your head. And it will be slippery, and there will be claws up high that will be coming and trying to get you, so you slip and fall down into the hellfire. Every one of us, even before you get to the uni, you might be dead. And for sure, every one amongst us, we're going to be passing on that bridge. But the only thing that's going to help us on that day is reading the Quran and acting upon the Quran. And that's what the Prophet ﷺ is saying. Read the Quran, for verily it will come for you on the day of judgment as an intercessor, as your mate. Something that will help you on that day. So let's remember this. Let's remember this. As Ramadan comes, that Allah sent Angel Jibreel in the month of Ramadan. Subhanallah. Allah sent Angel Jibreel in the month of Ramadan to the Prophet, so that the Prophet could read the Quran, revise the Quran, and study the Quran. When Ramadan comes on you, don't let that month go by except that you've read the whole Quran at least once. Don't let Ramadan go by except you've read the Quran at least once, and try to even read the meaning of the Quran. Even if you need to, get together in a masjid with other people, so you're in the company of the angels, with mercy and tranquility upon you. Do that at least for 1 month in the year, in the month of Ramadan. Let not this Ramadan go by until you've recited the whole Quran at least once. And also try to read the meaning of the Quran as much as you can. And remember that those athletes now in the Olympic Games, and with this I want to finish off, those athletes now in the Olympic Games, those who win the gold medal, somebody told me that those who win the gold medal, they actually don't even get any money as a prize. They don't even get any money as a prize. But what do they get? What do they get? When they win the gold medal, they get sponsorship. They get sponsorship from big companies. They're in the ads. They get sponsorship for the next 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, until they get old and other people forget them. But then, when you recite the Quran and read the Quran and act upon the Quran, you get a sponsorship that lasts you all the way until the Day of Judgment. And that sponsorship will help you in Jannah as well. That this guy is the gold medalist. He is the one who used to recite the Quran. And other people will be watching you rise in your status in Jannah on the Day of Judgment. But that is for the one who spends at least half an hour a day. At least half an hour a day, or 15 minutes a day, reading the Quran every day and its meaning. Otherwise, be sure that on the Day of Judgment, every one of us, the Quran will come either as our friend, arguing for us to help us, or as somebody against us, saying that the Quran was there, but this guy never read me. He did not even read its meaning even once to understand me. Let's take the opportunity in Ramadan to make it the month for the Quran. And have not just the gold medal, but that sponsorship that will last you for the rest of your life and for your eternal life in the Jannah. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us those special people, the people of the Quran. They are the people of Allah. They are the best of the company to be with. Thank you. Jazakumullah khairan. Wa akhiru da'wana and alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. The first of the question that someone sent is, it says, can you finish the Quran in the translated version? It says, can you finish the Quran in the translated version? The main reward, the reward of reading one letter, where you get 10 rewards for it, as the Prophet ﷺ said, if you recite one letter of the Quran, you get 10 reward for it. That is for reading the Arabic version of the Quran, because it's the Arabic version, that's the real Quran. So the reward of getting 10 times the reward for one letter, that's for the Arabic version of the Quran, which is what the Quran is. However, reading the translation along with the tafsir of the Quran or something like that, that is something that is very, very good, because as I said before from Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu, that there is a level of the understanding of the Quran that everybody should know. And that is to know, for example, that stealing is haram. There is only one God, Muhammad ﷺ is the messenger, there is Day of Judgment, etc. So this is the level of the tafsir of the Quran which everybody should know. Then there is a level of the tafsir of the Quran that people who understand Arabic know. So the people who learn from the translation, it is somewhere in between those two levels. So it's good to read the translation of the Quran along with some tafsir of the scholars in difficult verses, such that we get the benefit of the message of the Quran. And it is also very good it is very good for that reason to finish the Quran in the translated version, meaning read all the meaning of the Quran. But reading the Quran in the translation, it's not anything like reading it in Arabic. So reading in Arabic is the ibadah, and that is tilawat of the Quran, and that is what we do in the Quran, and that is what we get the reward of 10 times 4, etc. So reading the Quran in Arabic, the recitation itself is an ibadat, but reading the translation, it is understanding the meaning which is rewarding from Allah. So yes, it is good to read the Quran in translated version and to finish it, but you must of course read the Arabic as well. So you don't just leave the Arabic and then just read the translated meaning only. So the Arabic Quran is important, because just picture this, imagine if we didn't care about the original Arabic of the Quran, then now the original Arabic of the Quran may have been lost, like the Christians and the Jewish religion. So given that Allah puts so much reward and we read the original Quran, we now have Quran so many copies everywhere, wherever we go. So we should read the original Arabic, and that's the ibadat, but also it's good to read the translation of the Quran and understand. As I said, Sheikh ibn Uthaymeen rahimahullah, he said that the tilawat of the Quran is of three areas. One is the tilawat of the lafz of the Quran, the wording of the Quran, and that's what you get the 10 times reward for. The other is the tilawat of the meaning of the Quran, meaning to understand the meaning. And the third is the tilawat of the Quran, where you act on what you have learned of the Quran. So all these three we need to do, and all these three we commanded to do, but the first one is what we get the 10 times reward for, because that is the Arabic of the Quran. The next question asks, usually we listen to Quran while driving, and even at home we use CDs or cassettes of recitation of Quran. My question is, what is preferred, or whether we get equal hasanat for this practice? Thank you. If we listen to the Quran on a CD or cassette while we're driving, or whether at home or anywhere, do we get reward for that as well? About this, Sheikh ibn Uthaymeen rahimahullah, he discussed this matter, and his understanding was that if you're sitting with your friend, and then you recite a page or two, your friend recites the next page or two, and your other friend recites the next page or two. So all of you reciting page or two, and the rest of them listening to it, he understood from certain verses in the Quran that all the people get the reward of the Quran being recited. All the people get the reward for the Quran being recited, because he cited the verses in the Quran about Musa alayhi salam, where Allah mentions about Musa alayhi salam doing dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala about the kuffar at that time. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in reply says that He's heard the dua of you two, meaning of Musa and Harun alayhim as-salam. So Sheikh ibn Uthaymeen understood from this that Allah, even though Musa alayhi salam was the only one who said that dua, but Harun, his brother, was there with him, saying Ameen and so on. So therefore Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala referred to that dua as being from both of them. So from this the Sheikh said that if we recite it in that manner, then everybody gets the reward of it, and Allah knows best. And this is how many scholars in the past did used to do, where they would sit in a group, and one person would recite a page or two or so, another person would then recite while this one listens, and the third one would recite while this one listens. So they, it seems, also understood the same thing as well. So this is what the Sheikh understood. So based on this, if you were listening to the recitation of the Quran, it may be said that that is a similar thing to listening to the recitation of a person, and you get a reward for it. It may be argued that it is similar to it, and you'll get reward to listening to the recitation of the Quran. And that is a good, that is a good understanding, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. The next question asks, what is the meaning of Alif Lam Mim, and how many times does it occur in the Quran? What is the meaning of Alif Lam Mim? See, the letters Alif Lam Mim and other letters such as Taha, such as Yasin, such as Sad, and such as all these letters of the Quran, Ibn Kathir rahimahullah, he mentions in the tafsir of the Quran, just a brief summary of what Ibn Kathir rahimahullah mentioned in the tafsir of the Quran. He said, what do these letters exactly mean? Or do they mean anything? What do they mean? Do they mean anything? He said that some people claim that such and such a letter like Taha means this, Yasin means this. And some other people claim for the same letter a different meaning. So they claim different meanings for these letters that are in the beginning of some of the surah of the Quran. So as Ibn Kathir rahimahullah said, he said if there is a hadith from the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam that is authentic meaning this, then that is what we would all believe in. But he said that he was not aware of such a hadith. So that is what he said with respect to the meaning of the actual letters. And he said if some scholars felt that there is an evidence meaning that, then he said then that is their right to hold that opinion, to hold that view. But he himself, he said, had not seen that. That is with respect to the meaning of the actual letters. But what is the significance of having these letters there? What is the significance of having Alif Lam Mim? ذَلِكَ الْكِتَابُ لَا رَيْبَ فِيهِ Alif Lam Mim تَنزِيلُ الْكِتَابِ لَا رَيْبَ فِيهِ What is the purpose of having this? What is the wisdom and benefit in having this? About this, a number of scholars of the past have said, these letters, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if you notice, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala always mentioned these letters in the beginning of a surah, and thereafter, immediately, He follows the very next part of the verse. He follows that with mentioning something miraculous or great about the Quran. Something great about the Quran. So the scholars said based on this, they understood, some scholars understood, they said that it seems that the wisdom of using these letters, it is like saying, A, B, C, D, these, this is a wise Quran. Meaning you're saying, these are the letters of your language, A, B, C, D, E. From these very letters of your language, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put this book, this great book, the miraculous book. So they said that the wisdom of Allah having these letters, and Allah knows best, what some of the scholars understood is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it is as though Allah is saying that these are the letters that you use. From these letters is this amazing Quran. From these letters. So this is what some scholars deduced to be the wisdom of this. And you could read the Tafsir ibn Kathir for more on that and about which scholars said that. If a person stands for a while when praying and then sits down on a chair for sujood, how should he place his chair in line with the row? Jazakallahu khair. If a person is praying on a chair, then it is good for the person to try to pray at the end of the row on the sides as much as possible. The reason for that is, if you pray at the end of the rows, then the people at the back who will be affected by that chair will be minimal. And maybe because it's only in one direction, maybe they can move towards one direction. So it's better if the chair can be at the corner of the room. That is better. But it doesn't have to be, but it is better. How does a person align? When a person sits down on the chair for sujood, it is good for the person, when the person is sitting down for sujood, it is good for the person to maybe pull the chair forward a little bit, such that the person behind them can actually do the sujood properly. So pull the chair from under them just by the side, put it forward a little bit, so that they can still sit on the chair and be in line with the rest of the people around them. So now if this is my chair when I'm standing, I want to be aligned with everybody. So if I'm being aligned with the person on my right and left, I'll need to put the chair back to where their line is. But when the time for sujood comes, if it is actually hitting the person at the back in their head, then obviously we would need to move it forward a little bit so that we can sit on it and still be aligned with the people on our right and left. Pull it forward and still be aligned with the people on right and left, because when you sit, you move back. And then when you stand up, you can then just push it back again. That is if it was disturbing the person behind you. But if it's not disturbing the person behind you, then you can just sit on the chair as it is. But you should try to keep your trunk of your body in line with the people on the right and left. Because the Prophet ﷺ, when he would start his prayer, he would not begin the prayer in a congregation until he asked the companions to make the row straight. And then he would go to each of the people and he would align the row to make sure it is straight. To make sure that the row of the people is straight. And the Prophet ﷺ explained this by saying that if you do not do this, and if one person pushes himself forward in the row, if you don't align your rows properly and straight, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will create this unity between your hearts. And perhaps we can understand this in the sense that when we're all in a row and one person pushes himself forward, it's as though he's better than the other people and sticking himself out in front of everybody else. So the Prophet ﷺ, to make equality between all the Muslims, he said to make the row straight. So the person sitting on the chair, it is good for the person to try as much as possible to have the trunk of their body at least to be in line with the people on the right and left as well. The next one says, how many rakat do we need to pray for Taraweeh? How many rakat did Prophet ﷺ used to pray for Taraweeh? And the other question is the same. What is the correct way in performing the night prayers? I'm new to it and heard it's 11 rakah, including witr prayer performed between after Isha and before Fajr. What is the way of our Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam? Jazakallahu khairan. About the Taraweeh prayer in Ramadan, Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he himself during his lifetime, as Aisha radiallahu anha mentions, the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam used to always pray 11 rakah and no more than that. The Prophet ﷺ with the night prayer would pray 11 rakah and no more than that. But at the same time, when a person came and asked the Prophet ﷺ, tell me about the night prayer, how do I pray the night prayer? So the Prophet ﷺ said to him, pray in 2 rakah, 2 rakah, 2 rakah, and then when you're afraid that the Fajr time is going to begin, then finish it off with a witr prayer. So from this, the ulama said that even though the Prophet ﷺ himself prayed 11 rakah, and that is the best, that he never went over 11 rakah. And as some scholars said, the best is what the Prophet ﷺ did, which is 11 long rakah. But if you can't do that, you can pray shorter, many rakah. So based on that, the scholars said, they said that because the Prophet ﷺ said to the Sahabi, he said, pray in 2, 2, 2, and when you think that the Fajr will come, just do witr. So this, the Prophet ﷺ did not specify a number. So that is why it is fine for a person to pray more or less in Taraweeh prayer. Therefore, the scholars of the before, some scholars said pray 20 rakah of Taraweeh, some scholars said to pray about 29 including witr, some said 30 something, etc. So these are all different sayings of the scholars of before, and all of these are fine as long as you realize that Rasul ﷺ himself, that's what he prayed, but he left it open to other people to do as many or as few as they wanted to do. So it is okay for people to pray 20, more than 20, less than 20, it's all fine. But the best was what the Prophet ﷺ did, which was 11 long rakah. But it's not easy for many of us to pray 11 long rakah over 6-7 hours. So even if you could pray short and many rakah, that is fine, whether it's 20 or more or anything. And Allah knows best. Is there any special dua or surah that should be recited on Laylatul Bara'ah and Qadr? What should a mother recite for protection of a child? The Prophet ﷺ, Aisha radiallahu anha, she asked the Prophet ﷺ about Laylatul Qadr. Aisha radiallahu anha, she asked the Prophet ﷺ about Laylatul Qadr. She said that if I found myself in Laylatul Qadr, what should I recite? So the Prophet ﷺ directed her to say, Allahumma innaka afuun tuhibbul afwa fa'fu anni. Meaning, oh Allah, you are the one who pardons and you love to pardon, so pardon me. So that is a dua that the Prophet ﷺ showed to Aisha radiallahu anha to recite in Laylatul Qadr when she stays up during the night to do the worship. Apart from that, we could also do during Laylatul Qadr. The question is actually asking for dua, special dua, but apart from that, you could also read a lot of Taraweeh during Laylatul Qadr as well, because worship of one night of Laylatul Qadr is equal to 1,000 months of worship, which is 83 years and more than 83 years. So during Laylatul Qadr, it's good to stay up all night and recite Quran, do extra prayers, Taraweeh prayers as much as you can for the whole night, and to recite also Quran and to do this dua that the Prophet ﷺ showed to Aisha radiallahu anha, and you could also say any other dua or any other dhikr as well. So remember the surah, Inna anzalnahu fi Laylatul Qadr, that's all about this special great night, the night of Laylatul Qadr. So it's in the last 10 nights, obviously as the Prophet said, and in the odd nights of the last 10 nights. And the scholars said that the Prophet said in the odd nights of the last 10 nights, in order to get the people excited to search for that night in that short period of time. If the Prophet said Laylatul Qadr is in the odd nights of the whole year, you'd have to stay up for about 130, about 180 nights in the whole year. You'd say, oh, forget it. You know, I think I'll just... My great-grandfather once did Laylatul Qadr, that's good enough for me. So you wouldn't stay up yourself and do it. But because the Prophet said it's in the last odd 10 nights, that's easy. So we all go excitedly trying to do that. So Laylatul Qadr is very good to do it. As Allah said, Laylatul Qadri khayrun min alfi shahr. The night of Qadr, it is better than 1,000 months. And the angels come down on that night, and Jibreel alayhi salam comes down on the night. So it's a special night. So do that in Taraweeh as much as you can, and to recite Quran and do dua. And this particular dua that I mentioned, that Allahumma innaka afuun tuhibbul afwa fa'fu anni. So that's the dua you could recite on Laylatul Qadr as well. The other thing is, what should a mother recite for protection of her child? A mother, for the protection of the child, she can recite a number of things. One of them is the Prophet ﷺ, he used to recite, when Hassan and Hussein, the grandchildren of the Prophet ﷺ, when they were little kids, the Prophet ﷺ used to recite on them to protect them. He would say, أُعِيذُكُمَا بِكَلِمَاتِ اللَّهِ التَّامَّةِ مِنْ كُلِّ شَيْطَانٍ وَهَامَّةٍ وَمِنْ كُلِّ عَيْنٍ لَامَّةٍ. This way the Prophet ﷺ was doing seeking refuge, Allah's protection for these two little boys, Hassan and Hussein radiallahu anhuma. So he would say, I seek refuge in Allah for you from min kulli shaytanin wa hamatin, from all shaitan and from all harmful animals, and from the evil eye as well. So this is one thing that the mother can recite on her baby. أُعِيذُكُمَا أو أُعِيذُكَ بِكَلِمَاتِ اللَّهِ التَّامَّةِ مِنْ كُلِّ شَيْطَانٍ وَهَامَّةٍ وَمِنْ كُلِّ عَيْنٍ لَامَّةٍ. That's one dua. Apart from that, you could recite for your baby, if you want, you could recite before going to sleep, as the Prophet would do. Recite the three Qul surah 3 times. So the Prophet used to recite that on himself. You could recite that on your baby as well. You could recite Surah Fatiha if you wanted. That you could recite Surah Fatiha on your baby if there was something wrong, the baby was sick or something like that, because Surah Fatiha is known as a ruqya, meaning if you recite it on somebody, then depending on your sincerity, it's up to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to intervene in the disease process and to give you cure and shifa. So these are some of the things, and then there are some other dua as well that you could recite. Is there any basis for Laylatul Bara'ah, that is 15th of Sha'ban, in Hadith or Quran? Is there any basis for Laylatul Bara'ah, that is 15th of Sha'ban, in Hadith or Quran? About celebrating or having a night for Shab-e Barat on the 15th of Sha'ban, as you might know, there are some scholars who say that it is good to stay up on that night and do that night just like Laylatul Qadr. And there are some other scholars who say that there is no authentic hadith from the Prophet ﷺ to do that, so it is not from the Sunnah to stay up on that night, and it's not a practice that is in the Sharia. So these are two sayings of the scholars. Now, this issue tends to become a bit emotional for the people. Therefore, I don't want us to be sitting here crying and fighting, so I'll leave it for you to discuss it at another time, inshallah. Jazakumullah khair. I want to know the reward. I can't read it properly, but I think it's saying, I want to know the reward for the parents of the Hafiz person on the Day of Judgment. I think that's what this is saying. It's saying, like, if a child has memorized the Quran, what is the reward for the parents? If a child has memorized the Quran, what is the reward of the parents? Firstly, the child memorizing the Quran, that itself, I think, is the biggest reward for a parent. That your child has, mashallah, is one of the Sahib al-Quran. He's one of the Hafiz of the Quran. He's someone who's got the Quran in his mind and his heart. And he is one that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said that Ahlul Quran, Ahlullahi wa khasatuhu. He said that the people of the Quran are the people of Allah and His special people. So your son, if you memorize the Quran, or your daughter, then your son or your daughter is the people of Allah and His special people. That is the biggest status you could hope for your child. So just to have your child to have all these great things, that itself is a big reward for the parents. Apart from that, it's also there in a hadith that the child will intercede and do shafa'ah for the parent on the Day of Judgment. Some of the scholars said that this hadith is authentic, and some of the scholars said that it is not authentic, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. But still, that itself is a great honor and a reward to have your son or daughter to have memorized the Quran. Apart from that, your son and daughter being a righteous person, doing dua for you thereafter, that will be another thing that when you die, their dua will be heard and answered for you as well. So this is all just the special status of having a child to be a person of the Quran. In the time of the Prophet ﷺ, those people who memorized the Quran, the scholars of the Quran, they were called Qurra. They were called Qurra, meaning a Qari. Qari. Now we say Hafiz, before they used to say Qari or Qurra. They were, subhanAllah, they were the top companions. And Umar radiallahu anhu, when he was the Khalifa, and likewise others after him, in the gathering of people who they used to have for consulting, they used to have the Qari of the Quran, the one who memorized the Quran, in their consultative committee. So the Qari of the Quran in Islam, they're like the Senate, they're like the Parliament. They're the ones that the leader consults with. So just the honor of being the people of Allah and His special people, your child, being that in itself is one of the biggest honor for a parent to have that. It says, how do people fast in the cold countries like Iceland, Greenland, etc., where the sunrise only in 3 months and vice versa? In countries such as that, where the sun rises maybe in one Ramadan period, the sun might be up for the whole day or most of the day, or something like that. Or it might be nighttime for the whole time. So the scholars said, look for the nearest country that has a day and a night within the same day, and fast according to their timing. Look for the nearest country that has a reasonable day and night, and fast according to that. So inshallah, when you do travel to a country such as that, people will tell you exactly how to do it, inshallah. So we don't need to worry too much in detail about that now.